Yeah, good morning, everyone. This is Bob Connors. I'm chair of the Newbury Police Station Building Project Construction Committee. I'd like to confirm all the members and persons participating on the agenda and present and can hear me. I'm going to do a quick roll call. Martha Taylor.
Here.
John Keller. Eric Svan. Chief Riley.
Here.
Deputy Chief Lucy.
Here.
Okay, Vertex Context Team. Steve?
Yes.
Dave?
Here.
Zell?
Here.
Okay, Eric, good morning. We were just doing the preamble and enjoy yourself as I finish the rest of this. Okay.
He's got a green head box in the background.
Well, that's Plum Island beauty. So, good morning. This open meeting of the Newbury Police Station Building Project Construction Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allow public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting today will not feature public comment. Okay, thank you, everyone. We get that out of the way.
Deputy Chief, could you please unmute yourself?
Okay.
I didn't want you to listen to the police scanner going in the background.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if you need to mute again, that's fine.
Okay.
I can't do it from here.
Oh, okay.
So team, you got your pack. Did everyone get the meeting packet that I had sent in the attached 8 pages?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
I did.
So why don't we turn to tab 1? We have meeting minutes from May 20th and May 27th meetings for review. Why don't we take a moment to review? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to accept the meeting minutes for both meetings.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Any discussion?
Nope.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. All those in favor? Martha Taylor.
Yes.
John Keller.
Yes.
Eric Svan.
Yes.
Chief Riley.
Yes.
Deputy Chief Lucy.
Yes.
And Bob Connors votes yes. It's unanimous. Okay, turning to tab 2. We have pay rec number 6. We have the Vertex cover sheet. Take note that Vertex's cover sheet actually has 3 items that it's recommending. So it'll be the same cover sheet for a invoice from Context, pay rec 6 from BC Construction, and when we get to PCO 11, it's a recommended acceptance as well. So you see the pay rec?
Yes.
It's been signed off by Zell. It's been recommended by Steve and Vertex. We have no change orders. And do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Any questions? Any concerns? Okay, hearing none, I do a roll call vote. All those in favor, Martha Taylor,
Yes.
John Keller,
Yes.
Eric Svan,
Yes.
Chief Riley,
Yes.
Deputy Chief Lucy,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. It's unanimous. Okay, going to tab 3. We have context invoice dated June 8th, 2020. It has the cover letter from Vertex recommending payment. And it appears to be in order. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion to accept.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Any questions on this team?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none, I will have a roll call vote. All those in favor, Martha Taylor,
Yes.
John Keller,
Yes.
Eric Svan,
Yes.
Chief Riley,
Yes.
Deputy Chief Lucy,
Yes.
Bob Connors, yes. The motion's unanimous. All right, just make sure here. Okay, tab 4. This is the Vertex invoice for June, dated June 4th. John Kelly, have you had a chance to review this?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Do you have any questions? You recommend payment?
I do recommend payment, and we want to, Steve, make sure that after this framing period, we get Dave back to 40 hours a week. And keep that. Now, a comment I'd like to make, I've done in the past with some clerks of the works, is that if like there's a concrete pour and it goes late, that they work a 10, 11-hour day, that they cut out early on another day to keep that 40 hours if we can.
No, good point. Dave and I had a chat, John, and Mike Cresta had informed me that they were going to be working 4 10-hour days.
Right.
But the site is open for a half day on Friday. So it seemed prudent during that stage to have Dave covering that for the full time the cruiser. Now, certainly if there's a rain day, I wouldn't expect Dave to stay there for 10 hours if we get rain. But okay, so do we have a motion? We have a motion. We have a second. We've had discussion. I think it's time for a roll call vote. All those in favor, Martha Taylor,
Yes.
John Keller,
Yes.
Eric Svan,
Yes.
Chief Riley,
Yes.
Deputy Chief Lucy,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. The motion carries unanimously. On tab 5, you know what? The Japanese knotweed, surprise, surprise, is just a challenge to manage on the site. BC is working on it with Pelchet and with the Zell's team to keep it under control, but we all agreed in a general discussion on site that the sooner we get the town to adopt a best management practice for this on the adjoining property, it's near impossible to mitigate or continue to manage the knotweed on the police station lot unless the town actually gets involved in eradicating or mitigating the knotweed on the fire station lot, directly abutting the lot. So the thought is to put this in our meeting, make it part of our minutes, and forward this best management practices. It's about 30 pages. I can send you the full report, but I just wanted to get the committee's feedback on that. That's what we were thinking, and honestly, that was something Dave and I had discussed during one of our daily chats. But why don't we go around the table? Martha, what are your thoughts? What are your recommendations on this?
No, I think we should absolutely do that. Probably, I would suggest sending it simultaneously to Tracy, James, and Doug and Bill at a minimum, so that they can start working on something, and probably with a CC to the fire chief, so that they're aware of the issue.
Okay. John Keller, what are your thoughts?
I think Martha's idea is a great starting point.
It always is. Eric, how about yourself? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with Martha. Either deal with it now or deal with twice as much later.
It's just going to get worse.
Yeah. Chief, how about yourself?
Echo what everybody else has said.
Okay. Deputy Chief Lucy, what words of wisdom do you have to offer this morning?
I'm all for importing some giraffes because they eat this stuff and it'd be really cool to watch. I don't know. Just
Yeah.
you guys always take the easy way out. I don't know.
Let's
remember in Mike Cresta's comment, stuff is edible. So
Really?
yeah,
Manja.
salad, a lot of salad ingredients out there. I do want to make one comment, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Zell.
The construction documents include some mitigation procedures that the contractor owns. And so I'm not sure why nothing's being done. In other words, there is a specific chemical treatment that they recommend for new shoots that come up in June, cutting them off and then treating the stalks with the remaining stalks with chemical, whatever, I forget what the herbicide is. I mean, that's actually in the documentation.
Right.
And I think it's meant to cover this construction period when other forces are not going to be able to get it on site or deal with this stuff. I mean, the town is supposed to take over the process after the construction is finished in some format, some way. That will be developed, I'm sure, over time. But there should be something being done right now. And I don't know what the control measures are actually, what they're doing. I mean, Dave, what are they doing out there besides digging it? I mean, are they digging it out? Are they treating it? Or what are they doing?
Well, Sal, as you are aware, quite a bit of the topsoil on the area at the north of the site, beyond the parking lot, is covered with 6 mil black poly.
Yeah.
And that is stabilized. Mike Cresta spent several hours walking the back 40 there with me. Friday has ordered in additional rolls of black poly and is within the next week or so will begin treating the knotweed within the perimeter of the construction site.
Right.
Yeah, he's dialed in on it. We had a lengthy conversation about it Friday, and he's preparing to act.
I wasn't aware of what was going on, so.
The only thing that I might suggest is to follow along with getting the town involved with the adjacent properties, maybe having James Surratt involved in the communications with whatever's happening on the job site. Maybe he should be shadowing, and because to my mind, no matter what you do on the job site, if the adjacent property isn't properly dealt with, it's just going to keep coming back. So if maybe James can get glean some tactics or whatever by shadowing whatever BC's doing, that might be helpful for the fire department side of it. I don't know.
It's a very low tech process. It's laborious and involves hand work and chemicals. It's not much to it.
Oh.
Yeah. Dave, you have any comments you want to add to this beyond what you've already offered on what?
No. Well, as I've observed, Bob, that the temporary fence, so the construction fence and the hay bale setup perimeter is actually inside particularly out back there, by several feet to 10 or 12 feet in places that if you looked at the site plan are technically the site. And, that is where the knotweed has returned most abundantly. So on site, it's relatively small sprouts and shoots so far, but they grow at an impressive rate.
Yeah.
Steve, how about yourself? Any comments you want to add? It seems that we have two distinct issues. What's the contractual obligation of BC to mitigate it on site? And what proactive approach should the town take on the adjoining site?
So I think it's well summarized here so far. I think really the question is, how do we get the town involved? Exactly what do we do? Do we just set up a meeting with this Mr. Surratt, or how do we do that to get them dialed in further? I know they're aware of the condition, but how do we get them to take action? What permissions do they need, or authorizations do they need within the town to take any action? How exactly do we proceed?
Well, I think Martha touched upon it earlier. Why don't I, as chair, after we memorialize our meeting today, send off an email. We'll start out with Tracy Blaze, our town administrator, and then we'll CC everyone accordingly on, a quick summary of what it is that we have on-site mitigation, but the town net needs to be proactive on the adjoining site and use that as a kickoff. And Martha, if you would kind of shepherd that through the process, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, no, I'll do whatever I can to help. I'm wondering whether in the email to Tracy, whether it would be helpful to send the mitigation plan that was developed for the site to the town as a starting point.
That's a good point. Why don't I do this? I'll see if I can dig out all of the knotweed information.
I did.
You sent me the order of conditions.
Yeah.
And the section that, right.
From the documents, yes, I sent that all to you.
So I'll just create a PDF with a couple of tabs with all of that, with a little cover letter, when have it electronically and send it out to Tracy and the rest of the town leadership team.
Okay, and hopefully it'll be an easy process. I don't know if it's something that the Concom would have to approve or whatever, but hopefully we can get it started quickly, because my son's been dealing with it down in New Jersey, and it's quite a battle. I know how pernicious it is, and he's finally got it under control after about 3 years. So it's not easy stuff.
Okay, if we have, it's amazing how much discussion we've spent over the last couple of years about knotweed.
Who knew?
So, all right, team, if you turn to tab 6, we have PCR 11. And what this is, the Mass 911 required a particular power source, and this change order, or this potential change order, is to address that. Again, both the Context and Vertex has reviewed and recommended. I think the only question is, and John Lucy, is this a reimbursable expense from Mass 911? Where I was under the impression that they basically pay for or install all the costs associated with
my first pass at this is exactly that. They basically, you provide the power point, the 2-pole 30 amp box, and they do everything. I was hoping to have that answer for this meeting. I do have a call out to my contact. I was hoping to hear from him yesterday. Actually, Dave and I were talking about it yesterday as well. I don't have that answer yet, but I would expect to have it today. And what I'll do, Bob, is I'll forward it right to you immediately as soon as I have the answer to those questions.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just something that we'll let the town accountant know when we have an answer.
Yep.
We certainly need to proceed on this, and if it's reimbursable, great. Yeah. If not, we need it anyway. So.
Yep.
All right. So, do we have a motion to approve PCO 11?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, discussion. Any questions, team? Zell and Jeff and Dave and Steve have reviewed this, and I think the only question is if we can get reimbursed for it. It's not a substantial amount. What is it? $1,434. But if we can get reimbursed on it, that would be great. All right, hearing no further discussion, I'm going to a roll call vote. All those in favor: Martha Taylor,
Yes.
John Keller,
Yes.
Eric Svan,
Yes.
Chief Riley,
Yes.
Deputy Chief Lucy,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. The motion carries. It's affirmative. Or unanimous, excuse me. Okay, turning to tab 7. Our 2-week look ahead, which I have to honestly say, it's more of the funny page than the 2-week look ahead. I don't think we've seen one of these that's actually been accurate. I was looking back at our April 2-week look ahead, and it looks like the April 2-week look ahead is more accurate for the June 2-week look ahead. So personally, I'm getting a little concerned that the project, well, let me back up. We've heard that BC was going to be gaining time on framing and closing a gap on some time differential. I'm just not seeing it as of yet. And so I'm expressing my concern, and I'm going to do so at the weekly construction meeting as well. But Dave, why don't we just go around the board, and Dave, why don't you walk us through this, but offer your candid comments as well, because it's good to see progress. It just doesn't seem to be at a acceptable pace at this point from my experience.
I'll accept your invitation to speak candidly then. And as I've commented to you already.
This is a recorded meeting, so.
This particular 2-week look ahead is less accurate than the one that is attached to your package, as I've already commented to you, Bob, is less accurate than they typically are. And they typically do not reflect reality as it occurs. I'm paying very close attention to framing as it starts to develop. This is week 2, and this will be day 7 for the crew on site. And to underscore your comment at the beginning, I don't see any evidence on a daily basis of any pickup in time or schedule. In fact, I'm starting to perceive, even with framing, the opposite.
Okay. Well, obviously, at our next meeting with the build team, we can express these concerns. Steve, why don't we go right around the table? Steve, what's your thoughts on this, and recommendations on how to handle this or initiate this discussion with BC?
So we did just receive an updated schedule. I think it was Monday afternoon. They probably, as a strategy, provide a very complex outline of what they're providing for their schedule and details. So we're reviewing that schedule, making comparisons to previous schedules so that we can have a very specific discussion with them, line by line comparisons to previously issued schedules by BC Construction. And then with that, have a very informed discussion about how they're doing and maintaining or not maintaining or slipping with their schedule. And we know that we can make a schedule show that it is complying with project deadlines, but we have to review and have them explain how, if work continues to get pushed out, just how the amount of work that may be pushed out and squeezed in toward the end can actually be accomplished. So that's the strategy Dave and I have been reviewing as far as comparing those schedules and having those discussions with the BC team to have them take us through, first of all, the reality, as Dave outlined, that they aren't magically making up time, but perhaps not keeping up with what they outlined in the first place, and then bringing that to the construction coordination meeting and having that very good and thorough discussion with them to have them show us how this will all work and have an open and productive conversation along those lines.
Okay, so what are your thoughts, and what strategy or approach do you think is appropriate to nudge BC into the second gear framing?
Well, I mean, I certainly concur with with what Steve has said about it, but I guess the only the only carrot that exists for this process is money. That's the only thing that works, and I don't know anything else that has ever had any impact on any contract.
Contractor.
In any positive way. I mean, it's always about the money, and it's how that's managed and or how strictly we want to play by the rules, and how much diligence do you want to commit to, you know, crossing every T and dotting every I, and making sure that everything is in order. As you may know, I mean, we do a thorough analysis of the pay rec, and we exclude anything that in our opinion is not ready for payment. But maybe some of that should be, I mean, maybe we should be looking at it with a fine-tooth comb even more. And I'm not sure. All I can say is that it's just there has to be some reason for them to make the move to accelerate and to make the move to try to finish on time. And I don't know. It's a tough thing to do, to make them realize and what's at stake down the line. I don't know how else to do it, really.
Well, I think at our weekly construction meeting, Steve, we'll keep this really, I mean, not that it's not on the front burner already. I will delve into this in a little more animated way today, you know, emphasizing with the build team that they really need to kick this into the next gear, and they need a bigger crew there. I mean, they got a half a dozen guys. They could have a 10-man crew there and have the second floor deck on by now in a week's time. It's certainly not a complex framing schedule, but well, I think that's, if you're all in agreement, I think we'll have a spirited discussion at our next construction meeting. And, you know, Mike Crester has been responsive so far with all of our needs, and it's, but I look at the next 10 days of weather, and it's perfect weather, and it'd be a shame not to fully take advantage of that. But all right, any other discussions on the 2-week look ahead?
Just have a question. I mean, do you think that there's any possibility that they will try to make a claim of delays for the COVID, or is this really a management issue?
Well, I think they'll make it. Well, I think we'd be foolish not to think, Martha, that we're not going to have some discussion on COVID. And at this point, I don't think we've seen anything that has qualified as an excusable delay due to COVID. We haven't had any supply chain interruptions. I mean, we haven't had any formal claims to actually review, but it would probably be naive on our part not to think that over the next half a dozen months that COVID is not going to have some impact on this project with schedule or cost.
We do, Martha, in that direction, have that discussion every single project meeting,
Right.
so every
Right.
single week.
Right.
And we note, and fortunately on this and honestly other projects that I'm involved with, we haven't had any issues reported, specific issues reported regarding delays, supply chain, et cetera. As Bob said, that supply chain stuff may come out, who knows exactly, but in terms of efficiencies and labor and all that, for whatever that's worth, we do note that every week, and that's an opportunity every single week to bring items forward. And we document that we haven't seen them yet, and they have not been brought to our attention yet. It's uncharted, of course, for the industry and for all industries, but we're trying to stay ahead of it and stay in touch and mention it frequently and see if and respond if there are anything. But that's where we're at the moment.
So, Steve, maybe this is a question for you. Speaking of the COVID, the governor's guidance for gatherings of 10 people or more, would that prevent BC from bringing in a bigger crew? Where I don't know if that affects construction sites or not. I haven't really looked into that, but that was something that when you mentioned COVID, Martha, that popped up on my radar as far as an excuse not to bring in a bigger crew. I don't know if that's.
So I know you're more knowledgeable than me in this area, but I know that the public construction is not was not halted. There has been no crew limitation on public construction projects to limit them by that 10-person amount. There are different requirements for indoor work than outdoor work, right. But as you know, we're not there yet. So we haven't had to get into those policies, and purposely we haven't spent a lot of time on that because we knew that this changes frequently, what the requirements are and what the ramifications are and such. So we haven't gotten into that. We may, when we get inside, find different issues. Today we'll have to wait and see on that.
Thank you.
Eric, what have you been seeing on your projects?
Besides just the bigger picture of whether the projects are going forward by kind of what type of project they are, construction's moving forward. People have tents set up and check-in procedures, and then once they have that, they're following rules for construction. So I don't see a limit, and there are various trades, different trades on site. And it's just set up by project site. And I think the biggest thing is just getting check-in and setting up the rules for the site, and then construction's proceeding. Yeah.
I mean, what I'm saying is under 10 is one standard. Once you hit that delta of 10, it's the next level of oversight, check-in, hand washing. David, I mean, I think BC is already prepared for that. Didn't they already bring in a second porta potty and hot water hand washing stations? Or what have they done in anticipation of hitting that threshold of 10 or more?
Everybody involved took the guidelines seriously from day one. They immediately brought in the second portalet, which at some point we'll need simply because of bodies on site. But yes, we have a hand washing station. We have an inventory of masks and gloves that if we need to give out, we have. So far, everybody involved has taken it seriously. And once again, we're outside in the beautiful sunshine and fresh air. And as you well know, there's always a breeze there across the site. So the conditions have been ideal for everybody to work under so far.
There's also the ability to maintain the 6-foot distancing too, which is a component in this, and that, I mean, it's an open job site. So I don't know. I don't see where that has any impact on the 10-man, just for that. I mean, you don't have 10 people piled around one 2x4 putting it up, I know I'm oversimplifying, but the ability to maintain that 6-foot distancing as well has to weigh in on it too, I would imagine.
Oh, I think you're right. I just didn't know if there was any specific guidance to the construction industry.
Sure. So I think the answer to your question, Mike, is there's no reason they cannot have a bigger crew on site. As they increase the crew size, there's just additional protocols they need to follow. And their health and safety plan incorporates all that now. So,
Excellent. Good.
all right. Any other questions on this topic, gents?
Yeah, I got a question, Dave. Are they doing temperature checks at the site or at the shop before they come? It'll certainly be more of an issue when there's a lot more trades on site.
No temperature checks of any kind. I will say, Marmello Brothers, the Masons, were all masked 100% of the time. Now that's partially because of exposure to silica dust. The iron workers, and once again, that's mandated by their employer, were masked 100% of the time. But no, there's been no temperature checks. We certainly do. Whether BC does as rigidly as I do, I certainly pay attention to everyone's appearance. It's been relatively simple to maintain adequate distance between people, and but no temperature checks.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. Why don't we turn to tab 8 if we don't have any further questions on the 2-week look ahead. This is our hot list. We call it a hot list. Others could call it, we're just tracking items. So obviously item number 1, payment rec number 6, been received, been approved. Supporting recommendation from Vertex has been recommended. Steve, I'm going to suggest that you open up your meeting, your construction meeting at 8 a.m. to have a little pre-discussion before you have the build team involved just to discuss some open items that we have pending.
Sure.
Okay. So PCO4, that's the additional helical drilling status. Curious, have we had a chance to talk to Mike yet? And is that something that maybe you, I, and Mike want to get together on?
I have not, and mostly it's both Mike and my schedules. I know he's on site a lot, but the days that I can had planned to get there, he has not been able to be there. So maybe Thursday, and I know David and I have been talking about that to try to get that coordinated. But maybe this Thursday, late morning, is something that I would was my next step to try to make that work. Is that it's a good suggestion to speak to what you just said in terms of meeting together with him. Is that something that might work for you late Thursday morning, 11:30, something like that?
Yeah, let me, well, you know what? I'll check at our next meeting. I'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay, rather than for the committee.
Yeah, of course.
And me looking at my calendar. All right, PCO 11, that was the 9/11 panel that we just approved. John, you're spearheading the reimbursable aspect of it.
Yep.
Okay, item 5, hardware door, public restroom. Zell, I know that the brothers came back again with a revised number, but it just didn't make any sense. It just seemed excessive. Where are we at on that? And
well, the engineers have they've sort of said that now that they've revised their price, that it's okay. I mean, it's acceptable, the amount of work involved. So I don't know how the price is going to drop anymore.
well, they were still at $4,000 to run a 24-volt line with a 24-volt transformer with a couple of doorbells.
Yeah, well.
So here's what I'm going to suggest. I think we should break this out into 2 categories. We should let CARP, the hardware vendor, know releasing the door and hardware so that the door, the lock set, the electronic strike, and all the machining and boring that needs to be done is part of the door schedule, and we'll treat that separately. And than actually electrifying this. It's such a simple process. We're going to treat it as an owner supplied component at some point. I've actually talked to Mike Crester about this, and he was fine with that. I just can't see us spending $4,500 to do something that is relatively 2 hours work for one person at an apprentice skill level. So unless I'm missing something on this, but an electronic strike, Dave, it's either 12 or 24 volts. Needs a 110. I mean, we've done hundreds of them, and if the hardware, the doors prepped, and we've got all the hardware, a pull string from that frame up into the ceiling, not a big chore to run a 20, a low voltage line over, and take care of that. But so
we can also, Bob, issue a contract change directive and order them to proceed on a time materials basis and track their time. You could do it that way.
You know what? I just think that no matter what we do, it's going to be 3 times more costly than on a scale of 1 to 10. And I'm looking at John Lucy. We can leave this bathroom door unlocked until we actually get this thing.
Yeah, this isn't something that is going to hold anything up. I mean, it's not something that we can't deal with down the line. I don't see it as that. So,
yeah.
I mean, as long as the infrastructure's, as long as the door's the right door, whatever we do after that,
I mean, I see Bill Robitel or someone like that just taking care of this and
Bob, you know how hard it is for me to say to back off. You know that, right?
All right. Well, why don't we? So moving on. So item number 6, ground improvement rear parking lot. We'll loop that together, Steve, on Thursday's meeting with Mike. Okay. Item 7, framing, mobilization, start, duration. I think we've certainly have covered that in our general meeting comments, and we'll put extra emphasis on kicking this up into a higher gear at our next meeting with the build team. Okay, item 8, site excavations, utilities status. Dave, you had an update on the National Grid poles and any other update, Chad, on light pole bases, pads, and the like?
The proper people at the grid are involved. Yesterday afternoon, they had a subcontractor come out and mark the poles again. I mean, the dispatch guy marked the 3 poles last week, and they've had somebody come back and mark them and flag them again yesterday afternoon, which is a precursor for getting any work done. We may see them before the end of the week. We're in queue. And the light pole bases are manufactured, I believe, in sitting at the precast plant. It's a matter of getting them trucked into the site. We're in contact. I know the superintendent has spoken to Pelchat several times, coordinating them. Once the poles get set, we're going to run the rest of the underground to the poles and put the sweeps up beside them. And the idea was to coordinate all of that at the same time. Install the light pole bases, and do the rest of the underground. So I have some reasonable confidence that will all happen within the next 5 to 7 business days.
So where are we at on like the actual transformer pad is that being manufactured? Is Shea doing this all offsite for Pelchat or BC?
The light pole bases are coming from another supplier. They're not coming from Shea. The transformer pad and the condenser pads are going to be precast by Shea.
What about the generator pad for the gen set?
That may be coming as well. Yes,
Okay.
yes. That's under discussion. Yeah, yes, exactly.
You know what, that brings up an interesting point. Chief, can you circle back with Seabrook Station and MEMA to
Yes.
see if there's any available grant money to reimburse us for the genset or any of that? It was one of the things we initially, you had kicked
Right.
off a letter back in 2019, but I think it would be great to circle back on that one topic if we
I'll
could.
make a phone call today.
Okay, great. You know what I would suggest, Mike, is send a follow-up communication to your first communication about where we're at the status now where equipment pads are being contemplated, and show us the money.
Right. Okay. Absolutely. And
That'd be great.
I know it's in the 17 reams of paperwork we've had with this building project, but do we have any specific specifications for the generator itself, what it needs to be to power that building? Because they're going to want to know that before they commit to anything.
I think we have a RFI that was submitted by Brothers that gives you basically the full spec on it. I think it's really equating a dollar amount. At this point, they're not going to supply it. They would be more likely to reimburse us for the cost.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's in the generator's in the contract. It's not,
So you know what we could do? If Dave, maybe you could do this for us. If you could provide the chief with the RFI submittal by Brothers that have been approved for the genset, and the contract line item on the cost, maybe that's the attachment that the chief uses to reach out to Seabrook Station and or MEMA. That should answer.
Yeah,
Easy to do, of course.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. If you could send that to the chief electronically and just CC
Sure.
me on it, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Will do.
All right. Our favorite topics: exterior finishes, colors, sample board. Guys, I think we're down to what, step flashing? That's a monumental accomplishment when we only have step flashing left on the drawing board to decide. Is there any way we can reach a decision on this today? Just because you guys don't need to be tortured about this anymore for step flashing.
I do have some color samples coming from Belcor, which are supposed to be delivered directly to me, just to make things a little easier, unless we could just say, let's use lead-coated copper or something and call it a day. But
I'm fine with lead-coated copper. I actually like that look.
Love lead-coated copper.
And if it is going to be a small change order, it's certainly well worth it because of 100-year useful life we'll get out of it. So do I have a motion to use lead-coated copper for flashing?
I'll make a motion.
do we have any idea what the cost implications might be? It's not a whole lot.
No, it may be
Worth it.
$1,500 to $2,000, but it is certainly it will eliminate a potential wind-driven leak point if it's installed correctly, for the next 50 years.
Great.
And Zell, do you see any issues with doing that?
No, I don't see any issues. I mean, sure, lead-coated copper is great stuff. I mean, it's just not used much these days in public work because of costs. So,
well, you know what then? Whatever flashing color is as close to lead-coated copper. I mean, we're basically saying any step flashing in the gray family was actually
there are grays available in the color scheme, if that's
right. And that's what I've got coming. I've got
okay.
coming some greens and the grays, the darker grays, which hopefully would look like that.
Okay.
So Zell, the question is that there's no trim board underneath the shingles that separates the shingles from the roof.
There are only some conditions, which I would have to refer back.
So you see a little bit of this on the slope of where the sloping roof meets the shingles above.
Yes.
And so it's green to black, and silver would just look like the gutters, and it would just blend in with not being a different color from anything else. If we pick a green, then I think Martha and I are worried that we pick a green that's very different from the shingles weather. The green looks a little funky over time. So a silver color, whatever it is, would be best. And if there's a piece of PVC trim that sits underneath the shingles but on top of the roof, you're not going to see this anyway, and the color point is really moot.
Right, I didn't see any trim on the elevations. When I looked at it, it looks like it's just, you know, the shingles meet the roof, and that's it.
So
It shouldn't be a lot exposed here in any case.
So Martha, can we move forward with making a recommendation to go with the silver color that best matches lead coated copper?
Yeah, I mean, there was no silver, if you mean like a metallic thing. It was a gray. There were several. I think I asked for 3 shades of the darker gray.
Yeah. Well, the lead coated copper is going to come out shiny, and it will get dull pretty quickly, I think.
Right.
There actually are.
Dark gray in no time.
There actually is some trim in some of the cases in the details where siding rises up off low roofs. So there is it was part of the alternate to add the trim when all the alternates were accepted, the separation of materials.
So that only helps to hide the flashing.
That's correct.
So now we have less flashing to be concerned with.
You'll see less, yes.
Okay. Well, Martha, why don't we do this? Zell, come close of business Friday. If we haven't been able to provide you with the actual color for flashing, can you just select a gray that is similar in your view to lead coated copper, and just to close this out? And you know, Martha and Eric are going to spend 100 hours here on something that is a pencil line of.
I know, it's not.
You know what it is? Because of all the remote, the COVID, everything is just 3 times more time and more effort to try to see a physical sample. I mean, it's just.
Well, it's certainly complicated things a little bit.
So with that in mind, Matt, if you get your samples and come back, you have full autonomy to decide what you like. But by close of business Friday, Zell, if we don't have a recommendation, the closest gray you got to lead coated copper, that's it. And exterior finishes comes off the hot list for the committee, which is a monumental occasion. All right, so moving on, item 10, interior finishes and colors. Del, where are you at on that? Are you still waiting on anything? And of course you're waiting on something from the build team.
Well, we do finally have, I think, probably all of the important stuff in hand, and I am starting to go through it. Unfortunately, these couple of weeks right now are really pretty tough for my schedule personally. I've got a lot of other deadlines and other projects going on, but I am starting to look at it, and I will do my best to start to put some schemes together. But it may take another week or two to do that.
Okay. Certainly. All right. Well, long as you have what you need from.
Yeah, I think we're all set for the basic stuff.
So our next proposed meeting would be July 15th. That would be the 3rd Wednesday in July. Would that give you enough time, you think?
Oh, certainly by then we can have
all right, then
together.
I think if that makes sense to everyone, I think that that will be fine from our viewpoint. I don't know. You know, I haven't encountered any issues on lead time for carpets, but
I don't think there's a problem with carpet.
Yeah, we're probably 120 days out before any of these surface finishes are even going to be.
Yeah, it's the last thing that goes down.
Right. Okay. So Zella, we'll put down that you'll provide us an update on the July 15th. All right. We've talked about the 2-week look ahead where we're going to share our concerns with the build team at our next meeting. Item 12, updated project schedule. Steve, you're reviewing that, you and Dave, and comparing it to previous schedules. Item 13, David, I haven't heard of any new construction issues regarding delivery, early starting, or neighborhood concerns. Chief, have you gotten any further calls or communications?
Nope, no further complaints.
Okay. Dave, how about yourself? Have you?
No, and I didn't know, believe me, I check in with the neighbors on a regular basis and ask if there's been any disturbances. It's only the BC framers. They're good kids. They get there at 6:30, but they're very quiet.
Yeah.
And
good. Well, that's greatly appreciated to the neighborhood, and it's quite an accomplishment to go through 30 days during framing at this level and not have a couple of calls from the neighbors. So it's a good job by the build team. All right, team, I'm going to go around to all of you. Any other matters, concerns that we have via the design team or build team or the committee? Why don't we start? Martha, you're in my upper right-hand corner, so I'm going to start with you.
I think I'm all set, thanks.
Okay. David, how about yourself?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Zell?
All set.
Chief?
I'm good.
Steve?
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay. John Lucy?
All set.
Okay. Eric?
I'm good, thanks.
John Keller?
I'm all set, and I plan on coming to the site this morning, David.
Okay. So, team, I will drop off on the pay rec, the PCO. I will drop off whatever we have, the 2 invoices and the pay rec. I will drop off and sign at the police station that now that they've been approved. And Mike or John, if you could sign them and get them over to Martha, I think, and then we get them into Eileen's hands. That would be great.
Will do.
Okay. Any other business? All right. It's 7:59. Our next meeting, July 15th, would be the 3rd Wednesday. How does that work for everybody? I mean, we have great flexibility. This was a little longer meeting than usual, but I mean, the weekly meetings, it wouldn't be a big effort if we had to have a meeting at 8 o'clock by the committee and before one of our weekly meetings to clean something up that we need to address or process some payment applications of the like. But
I think that works great.
okay, so July 15th, why don't should we leave this at 7 o'clock or should we move it up to 7:30? I mean,
7:30.
Eric, how about you? It's you, your schedule is.
Yeah, my Wednesdays have opened up for the time being, but they could go right back to being jammed.
Okay.
So I would do what everyone else, accommodate everybody else first.
Okay. Well, let's do this. Martha, I'll work with you. I'll send over a draft meeting notice for July 15th. Let's try 7:30. See how that works for everybody.
That works.
Okay.
What time is the construction meeting? Is it 9?
8:30.
8:30.
Yeah.
Okay. I might have some time. Is it possible for me to stop by the site?
Oh, sure.
It's remote though, Eric.
The meeting,
No, but I'd like
Meeting
to,
is remote.
right, but is it possible for me to stop by the site and
sure.
take a look? I have all my PPE gear.
Eric, what time are you going to be going?
I just open question of what's best to accommodate everybody else's schedule or not be getting in the way.
Well, I think the meeting is probably going to be 8:30 to 9:30. It would seem any
After
time
9:30.
after 9:30 would seem to make sense. If,
Okay.
but you know, I leave that up to Dave and Steve.
You're the customers. Customers always right.
You're right.
You might as well give him his Vertex hard hat, so when he's on his other construction sites, he can wear the company colors.
Give them two just to hand them out.
I put the insides in them all yesterday, so I don't have to struggle with it every time somebody comes down.
Yeah, that was painful to watch, Dave. That was painful to watch, you putting those together.
Practice makes perfect, John. I picked up speed as I assembled the rest of them.
We may
You
have
want to
to
do that behind closed doors, David. You don't want an audience for doing that.
we may have to put you on the framing crew, Dave, is to increase the pace. All right, team, it's 8:02. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone.